Hi guys, welcome back to the Divij podcast, episode 127. Man, first of all, thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys are still here with me, rocking, we really appreciate it. I know we've been gone for a couple weeks. I was in India. Shout out to my sister who's getting married. We love you. But dude, this is a very special episode for me. We're sitting in Gadsden, Alabama, in the middle of nowhere, candidly, but with one of my favorite artists literally in the world. And my videographer, Grant, when I told him, he also freaked out because he was like,
sweet, thank you.
You know, we're huge fans. And if you heard that voice, man, we got Joshua Huey.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's go. Otherwise known as Clever. He's a rapper, singer, songwriter. Man, collaborated with the likes of Justin Bieber, Post Malone, Juice WRLD, Snoop Dogg, Chris Brown. You know, the list goes on. Almost 1 billion streams.
Yes.
On Spotify.
Thank God. Yes.
Man, God is good. Well, Clever, welcome to the pod, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for
appreciate
having me.
it.
Thank you for coming to Gadsden.
Of course.
To Gad Vegas.
Gad Vegas?
Yes.
Is that what they call it?
That's what I call it. Gad Rock.
Yeah.
It goes by many names.
It's a very peaceful place.
It is. It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely, you know, to go to LA, to go to Atlanta and come back here, it's a breath of fresh air sometimes.
Yeah.
We were in Atlanta traffic just yesterday, and my wife was like, she's from Mobile, so she's from a bigger city, but I think she's more small town than she knows now.
Yeah.
She was like mad in Atlanta traffic. You get here, you know, in LA, you go 10 miles, it takes you an hour and a half or something like that.
Yeah,
and
long.
here you can shoot over there and shoot over here in 3 minutes, you know. That's why
Crazy.
I'm late to everything. But
Me too. But they say that when you're late, you're more creative.
it's got to be a thing.
It's got to be a thing.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Yeah. Dude, we got in yesterday and we were just like, we got in at like 9 p.m. We were just like staring at the clouds. We were like, this is like something different. Because I think in LA, you don't really get to see, you can't even see stars because of like the pollution.
Right.
But here it's like the moon was like right in between the clouds. Like it was just this beautiful scenery.
Yeah, Alabama's, it's a pretty place for sure. Here they don't build a lot, so it's like very green. You know, it's like they try to keep it as green as it can be. So, but there's a lot of beauty here. So,
but there is a tornado coming.
that's true.
So how does that work?
Well, you have to, you know, you can't have one without the other, I guess. You know, it's we definitely get it. You came from Kansas, right?
Yeah, Kansas
originally.
City.
Yes. So you know all about it. But,
I've been in a few.
Yeah, there's no place like home. You know, that's how the Wizard of Oz started. You know, it was like with a tornado. So
That's true.
No, but yeah, I mean, we definitely deal with it. But I think, you know, you don't get the green grass without the rain, and every now and then it spins.
Yeah.
So.
Well, God willing, we'll be good.
Yeah.
Dude, before we get, deep, and my whole goal with this conversation is, I think, from my understanding, you haven't done a lot of interviews, and I think that's really cool for me because I get to kind of like dig deep, and I don't like talking about stupid, controversial stuff. Like I want to get to know you as Joshua, as who you are beyond the music.
Yes.
But before we get deep, I would love to hear kind of just like a day in the life of Clever, like in Alabama. Like, what do you do every day?
Oh, in Alabama, you know, when I'm here, I want to be outside. I mean, where you're at right now is like some of the best fishing on the planet. So we have a lot of river here, a lot of lakes, and that's where we spend the majority of our time. I got a big pontoon boat that we take out, and so we're at the right time of the year. We're either at a campground. It's a lot of outdoor stuff here. We love to go camping. We love to go fishing and ride on the boat and that sort of thing. But you know, you go south Alabama, it's like you've got the beach and stuff like that on the Gulf. So you know, it's kind of the best of both worlds here. You can kind of get it everything, you know what I mean? That's what you do here. It's good eating, it's good family, you know, and a lot of outdoorsy type stuff. Now, you know, for me, a day in the life, if I could be here as much as I'd like to be, you know, I mean, a lot of times I'm moving, you know how it is. But from where I'm at, a lot of my stuff's either in Nashville or it's in Atlanta, and I'm just back and forth. So all my family's here, my kids are here, so it's like, you know, if I go for a little bit, I always have to come back, and it's always a breath of fresh air to get back over here and slow it down a little bit. So. But yeah, that's a day in the life. It just, you know, on the move, doing whatever I got to be doing, whether it's performing or podcasts, interview, or you know, video shoots. We just did a video shoot yesterday in Atlanta, but it's ever changing. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I always wondered, because my girlfriend is from the South, and I had a chance to go to Nashville and Mississippi and spend time in what they call the Bible Belt.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a new Christian. I just found God maybe
nice.
8 months to 12 months ago.
Okay, cool.
And so it's been such an incredible journey. But being in the South especially, I feel like I felt his presence in such a deep way.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if there's, because it's like there's churches everywhere and everyone's so kind and you just kind of feel that love. But I'm curious for you, like, as I walked in, I noticed you had the 10 Commandments, listed right there. You got pictures of Jesus everywhere. Like,
right.
How impactful has it been for you growing up in the Bible Belt? Because I think you're from Gadsden, right? Like
yes, correct. Yes.
Yeah.
It's been. I mean, it's my purpose. I think music to me is just a bridge, really. To bring people to Jesus. So I think being from the South definitely probably played a role in that. I mean, it is the Bible Belt, and it's called that for a reason. We know what we're doing down here. No, it's. I mean, you grow up a Southern Baptist. I think it's just different. You live by it, and it's definitely played a huge role. My whole family, growing up, I mean, as far back as I can remember, we're all Christians. I almost said big Christian. I told you earlier. I was like, I hate that term, big Christian.
Yeah.
You either are or you aren't. You know what I'm saying? There's no big Christian. I think to call yourself anything but is you're probably not on the right path. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I mean, I think my music in general, I think that's my goal is to eventually stop doing all of this and preach. Yeah. And maybe I would prefer to do it at the height of my career, I think, and reach this peak and then be like, okay, this is the time, but I think my music is meant to be a bridge to Jesus,
Yeah.
So
was there a point where you found God? Like, I'd love to just kind of get into that because I think for me it was, my mom got a double lung transplant. And I had never really gone through anything in my life that was significant until that happened. And I realized, like, when I was on my knees and I was like, I needed that. And I felt like I had nothing else to rely on. That's when I found God. And it was a truly, like, positive and impactful, experience, despite how terrible the situation was. But I'm curious for you, like, has God always been in your life because of the way that your parents raised you? Or did you kind of go through something that was tragic that made you find God?
I was definitely raised in church. And growing up in church, I was singing in church when I was 8, I mean, in front of everybody. So, and my mother used to clean the church at one point. Wow. And when she would clean the church, just like for some extra money, my dad always was the house, he was working, all the time, but she would clean the church every blue moon. It didn't last for very long, but when she did, I would go with her sometimes so I could go play, and I would be on the microphones like singing to the sanctuary. So, to an empty sanctuary. But, I think I was definitely raised in the church, but I also stumbled from time to time. I mean, I at some point I was listening to Korn and Limp Bizkit, and you know what I mean? Like, I went through some phases, but I don't think I ever went too far. Maybe I did. There was definitely times where, I had some problems with addiction. I think we all fall short, but, it was always in the back of my mind, I think, but in the last couple of years, I would say I've definitely started to try to eliminate anything that stood in between me and God. So little by little, and it's still a process, we all deal with it. But, I mean, I've been sober for, I want to say it's close to 1,000 days now.
Stop. Let's go.
So, yes, thank you.
Let's go, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, and I'll have to count. I need to make a post, like 1,000 days. Yeah. I've been completely sober. I have taken a sip here and there, but I hadn't been drunk, and which wasn't my issue to begin with. But yeah, I mean, I think dealing with some of the losses and stuff like that, I've had to. I mean, I've had a lot of friends die, around me that definitely played a role in that. But for the most part, it was about just trying to eliminate anything that stood in between me and my faith, and I'm still working on that every day. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I veered away for a little bit. I'm at my best self right now, so I feel like there's more to do, but I feel good about where I'm at. Yeah.
I think you meet certain people and you just like feel this level of peace, right? Like I think it's 127 episodes, and I'd say like 80 to 100 of them, the person I felt like a lot of just like I feel like I could hear what was going on in their brain. But with you, I do feel a level of peace. And I'm so curious to know like how you get that, because especially in the music industry, I would love to get into the stories and all the crazy stuff that you've seen.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to, before we get to that, actually, I want to kind of take you back and understand how you were as a kid. Like, could you kind of describe like what your personality was as a child?
So, yeah, I was very quiet, more observant. My great-grandmother always said, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you should listen twice as much as you talk. And I was that. I very much was just observant and didn't say a whole lot, but, had a lot going on, a very creative kid. And I started writing poetry around 11, and it transitioned into writing songs. I was big into sports. I had some college scholarship offers in baseball and stuff coming out of high school that I didn't take, and broke my father's heart. But yeah, that was me as a kid. It was sports. I played baseball, football, basketball year round. So, I was good in school, but never really cared. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like top of my class, type grades, but didn't even try. So I was writing songs, in class the whole time. So, but that was me. I was quiet. I was funny. I was a little rebellious at times. I did get into a lot of trouble and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but I eventually grew out of it. Like, last month, I grew out of it last month.
Yeah.
So, but no, I was a good kid for the most part. It started turning around my teenage years, I guess. I started wilding a little bit, but
yeah. Where did that come from? Was it like the people that you were surrounding yourself with? Like,
I think it's in my blood,
Oh,
yeah,
really?
yeah. And the people, and I can't say a whole lot about them because the majority of them are not with us anymore. So, I would say maybe 3 of my best friends are dead now, growing up. So, I don't have any close friends that I didn't meet in the last 10, 15, all of them from childhood are except for a couple, are no longer with us. So,
man, dang. Yeah. Do you mind if we dig deeper into that?
Sure.
Was it drugs and alcohol that took them out, or what?
Yes. Yeah, there was, to give you, just the real thick of it. I had a friend that we were close since we was probably 4 or 5. That at some point I felt like I knew he was gonna die from it, and there was just no fixing it. And I don't know that I ever really tried hard enough to maybe get him on the straight and narrow, but I definitely had my fair share of time, right there alongside him, what I'm saying, with his blood on my hands, really. But when I got into a bunch of trouble, and I hate to talk bad about him, but there was a time where I had a couple friends that snitched on me when we were locked up, and then I never spoke to him again. And he actually, this specific one moved to Florida, and was hanging out with people that he didn't even know, that didn't give a shit about him. You know what I mean? And he was actually dead for like a month before I even found out, before anybody around here that even knew who he was, really. And he was cremated before that, was unidentified, and the people that was supposedly loved him or that he was with just left him. It was a rough patch. And then after me and him there was a good solid maybe a couple years between us kind of parting ways and him passing, but we were friends for a little over 20 years, like best friends. So Another guy that I consider like my road dog for, for those last couple of years there. Um, he was drunk and died behind the wheel, and this was at a time when I had my first child, and I was trying to get away from that, put away all the childish ways, and so I wasn't doing all the same stuff anymore, and he'd want me to go with him, and I'd be like, no. But the last, like 2 of the last 3 times that I saw him, he was drunk, and he was like driving and dancing out the window, and I laughed, and kind of played it like, bro, you're crazy, like you're gonna end up killing yourself type shit. And I laughed about it till it just wasn't funny anymore. You know what I mean? Eventually, I woke up to the news of him flipping his vehicle several times and being flung from it, and now I avoid that road. You know what I'm saying, with that cross there, and it's like I never did enough, to try to speak up, for my friends. Juice WRLD was the same. I had been down that road several times before Juice passed, and so I always encourage people to speak up, even if it's not cool, even if you come off as lame or weak, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's really lame is not having your friends anymore. You know what I'm saying? What's really weak is you when you think about your friends that you no longer have. You know what I mean? That's when you really see how strong you are. You know what I mean? So, or how weak you may feel. So I think I definitely would encourage people to speak up if they see something that's, and with Juice, I saw it, and I didn't say enough. He was, he was like on this Elvis type thing, like nobody was really saying enough. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? He was, they was afraid of getting kicked out of the circle. You know what I'm saying? In a sense, you couldn't tell him nothing. He was grown, but now that what would you have said if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now it's too late. And now all I have are songs that we did together, so many of them where we're talking about drugs and we're talking about overdosing and like playing it, like glorifying it in a sense. And that's, it's just not, it's not the thing. It's not, if that doesn't change who you are and how you approach what you do, then what would,
Yeah.
So,
man, I wasn't expecting to like get this deep this quick, but I'm so happy that we're here because I have a couple things that I want to say from that. And thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, that's like very, very deep, especially when it's people that you love. But my father is an alcoholic and he's still with us, thank God.
Yeah.
But I always have this battle with myself where I'm like, I read something that said that if you don't agree with someone, like if for example, someone's an alcoholic and you have these opinions and you're like, Dad, I don't think you should be drinking. Like it said that you're judging them. Mm-hmm. And so I always kind of tiptoe this line of like, I don't want my father to feel like I'm judging him, but I also want him to stop drinking because I don't want to have to be on the other side when he's, God forbid, not with us. Right. And then I'm like, dang, I should have said something. So like in your mind, given you've been through that situation, and I'm so sorry that you've been through that, but like, where's the line? Like how much are you supposed to speak up? Like,
I think, I think you have to, immediately. And I say that because I've lost so many at this point just to substance abuse, period. At some point, we all grow out of it, or we don't, There was like one friend that I had that I knew it was a lost cause, we were well into our, to our years. We'd already been down that road 100,000 times, and it was, Juice was 21. He was, just a kid, but, there was several of them that I felt like they should have knew better, and they needed somebody that really cared about them, that was close to them, that they valued their opinion, that wasn't a mom or a dad, that was just, that they could easily kind of deflect. And I think it's very important to hammer down on them in a sense, and to go that extra mile or risk, losing your friend for something you didn't say, I think it's very important, if you really truly care about somebody, that you have to step up, and there's really no time to waste, because even the smallest amount of alcohol behind a wheel, even the smallest, you could have already done the damage that's gonna kill you, and continue to drink, to liver problems and that sort of thing. So I don't think there's any time to waste. I think, now is the time.
Move with urgency.
Absolutely.
In that situation.
Yeah, for sure. And stick to it. And I don't think it's, maybe it is a judging thing, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Maybe you're not judging them, but you just care about them, and there's a way to maybe show that, maybe, because if you think about what alcohol is to somebody, the crutch that it is, when you start getting rid of that stuff, you replace it with something else. So maybe they just need that replacement, and they haven't found it. When I write music, it's an escape for me, and I know you as well. So like we was talking about earlier, you take it off your chest and you put it on that, and then it's there. It's not on you anymore. It's now you're empty of that. So I feel like for people that are turning to, and I know from my experience turning to drugs in my past, I was trying to escape something else, and I mean, I could have picked up a hobby. I could have went fishing or played golf on the weekends or something, instead of getting drunk all the time. I think I don't think it's a boredom thing. I think you get stuck in this hole that you just need maybe something else to help you climb out of it, and just replace it with something else. So maybe I don't know. I wish I could give you the best advice on that, specifically, but I definitely think that that you shouldn't stop the fear of, does this come off as judgment, as a reason to not say anything, for sure.
Totally. No, I last week, literally, I sent him a text. I was like, because we had a call, and he was like, they were joking about alcohol, and every time that happens, I kind of go into serious mode, because I never want it to be light. And after we got off the phone, I texted him, and I was like, if anybody's gonna quit, it's you. Like, I know you have the strength. Other people are weak, you're not. Sure. And I was scared to send the text. Like, I like hesitated. I was sitting doing red light therapy. I was like, for like 30 minutes, I was just like, should I send the text or not? I ended up sending it. I threw my phone away, and I went to work out. I come back, and he responded like 4 or 5 hours later, but he said, keep hammering at me. I love you. And so I feel like some people just need that like push.
For sure. And that's definitely him, like, wanting that. And it may have taken him a minute to respond, because it was hammering him, and he didn't know exactly what to say. But in the end, he was like, yeah, I think that's what I need. And I definitely think you did a good thing there, and you should keep hammering, especially, I think if you was to not hammer and something bad was to happen, and he was saying, yeah, keep hammering, then you would regret not hammering down. So hammer away. And sure. Is he a Christian, or? He's
a Hindu.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, for me, in Christianity, of course, it teaches about, it talks about willpower, and kind of not letting your body, have control over, your mental. And I think to turn to alcohol as a crutch is that's a mental thing. So I feel like your soul has to win in the end. So maybe religion is the answer.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah, for sure. I've been taking them to church and whatnot, and it's been helpful. But let's switch gears, man.
Sure.
And thank you for that advice.
Same. You as well. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to ask though, because as I'm 28, but as I've gotten older, I have noticed that regret starts to creep up, especially when bad things have happened in the past. So, for you, like, what's been your approach with dealing with any regrets that you've had in your life? Like, are you like meditating, like journaling? Are there certain tactical things that you do that help you?
Not necessarily, journaling or meditating. trying to right my wrongs the same way I wronged them, I guess. You know what I'm saying? A lot of my regret is through song. You know, some of the songs I've put out in the past, you know, I was glorifying sin in a sense. You know, I was glorifying drugs, and it's something that I deal with. I mean, just the other day, near Valentine's, me and my 3-year-old daughter, we did a daddy-daughter dance, and there was this little girl. She had to be 12 or 13 or something, and she comes up to me and she was crying. She was excited to meet me, right? Huge fan. Later on, I was excited to meet her, and you know, and shook her hand and took a picture with her and this, that, and the other, and it hit me like there's little kids, you know, that listen to my music. About an hour or so goes by, and she comes up to me randomly, and she's like, my favorite song of yours is Pop a Pill. And it's this song that I have. It's talking about I might pop a pill, and it's like mixing two things together like chocolate milk, and it's like it's going into like this really, like, it's so pill driven. It's like it's a terrible song. And it's actually a song that I shot a video for and removed off of YouTube at some point right when Juice passed. So because it was just hurting me so bad every time I'd hear it, and it would go up in numbers or something like that. But once you've put it out there, you know, it's out there. People, you know, the song's released, they find it on other platforms, or somebody downloaded it and re-uploaded it and that sort of thing. So, but to have this very young child come to me saying, you know, her favorite song was Pop a Pill, I was like, you don't even know what popping pills are about. You know what I'm saying? This didn't look like a girl that was, but maybe influenced in her life at some point to go try pills, something that's hurt me 100 different ways. You know what I'm saying? And to think that I put something out into the world that may hurt her or someone she knows, you know, that she brought alongside her, and that be what I contributed to the world, is a terrible feeling. That's the regrets that I have. You know, some of the songs that I've written with artists that are not with us, and some of the songs that I've put out there. So I think it's my obligation to, and that's a lot of the reason why I feel like my music is a bridge, you know, to God at this point. And I'm still making songs that maybe are not typically faith-based, you know, but I feel like Jesus kind of comes to where you are, and my job, I think my goal is to find people that are cut from the same cloth as me and have dealt with some of those things, even if I'm talking about it today in a different sense. But I just feel like that's my obligation at this point, is to kind of right those wrongs and write the songs that maybe say the opposite, in hopes that the same people that were influenced by the latter was, you know, they get this new thing, or they see that I came from this to now doing something else. You know what I mean? Yeah. But you know, it's definitely something that still weighs on me, because a lot of those songs are still out there. You know. Yeah. There's a couple with me and Juice on it that are, you know, upwards of 100 million streams, that we've talked about everything under the sun. There's a lot of songs that I was a part of, that I was in the studio writing alongside Juice, that I'm not even on, you know, a part of his catalog, that it's straight up, I mean, he's all but crying for help in his songs, you know what I mean, and talking about things that when you hear them today, it's like, geez, you know, it really kind of opens that door. You're like, he was crying for help, you know what I mean, and all I was doing was like, oh yeah, that's a dope bar, bro, you know, and the one about Xanax, or, you know, stuff that eventually would lead to him dying, you know. That's the regrets I have, and I think as a creative, it's my obligation to kind of manufacture something that spreads a different message, you know. Yeah. So I think that's my goal at this point. I don't meditate. I have to get to work. You know, it's not about me. It's more my regrets is what I didn't do for those, or, you know, what I might have influenced in my children even. You know what I'm saying? Looking at them in the same light that the kids that I've influenced, you know, around the world.
Yeah.
Trying to right those wrongs.
Yeah. That's beautiful. It sounds like Juice had a really positive impact or a significant impact in your life.
Absolutely.
And from my research, it sounds like, I mean, you had a lot of success, musically, I think, prior. But it sounds like when, I think it was a Little Baby that showed Juice the song. Is that accurate?
No, it was Little Bibby.
Bibby, okay.
Yeah, close. But
Yeah.
so me and Little Baby have a couple records too, and Little Baby was actually trying to sign me around the same time that I signed with Juice, but no. So I put out some snippets. I was in a terrible deal. I had some success prior, not a whole lot, but I had written songs for other people. So I was in a terrible deal for a while, where I wasn't able to release anything. I had hundreds of songs just ready to go, but then I started writing songs for other people in its wake. So because I was having a hard time, but I had all these contacts and stuff that I've been working with people. So I had written some songs for Snoop Dogg, and Corrupt, and like Mac 10, a bunch of OGs, that we were working together, and Everlast, and a bunch of those kind of cats out in LA. And it branched off into me, writing for a lot of different people. At some point I wrote gospel songs, I wrote opera songs, I wrote, I've done it all. Yeah, there was a group from Tel Aviv that I actually translated from Hebrew to English for a full album. So I've done it all at this point. Yeah, but so I started writing with David Foster. Which full circle moment, his daughter would marry one of my managers at some point. So yeah, it was a full circle moment in Nashville while doing country stuff. But yeah, I had a little success, but Juice definitely, when I got out of that contract, I started putting out some solo records again, and I was like excited, and I had been through a lot. So I started writing about those emotions, and it was really deep and dark and emotional. And I shot Loyalty across the street here at the falls, and it's a big waterfall. At the time, I was like, I can't do it over there. Everybody does photos over there, but I was thinking very local, But then I was like, not the world. The world hasn't seen this 90-foot waterfall. I'm gonna go over there and shoot it. And I went over there and shot Loyalty. We put it out, and I hadn't released it when Juice heard it. So it was just a snippet on my Instagram for a while, for a couple months, and Juice reached out and was like, dude, I really love this song. And then eventually he would go on to tag me on his Instagram and posted the clip of the snippet saying, I need this guy on my album, somebody tag him. And all of a sudden it was like, I think I had maybe 15, 20,000 followers at the time. But then overnight, and this was like for 10 years worth of grinding, and then Juice posted it, and I went from like 20 to 60 or something within a couple of days. So from that point forward, he was trying to get me to come to LA to work on the album, and we ended up writing a bunch of songs together for Death Race, for Love, and some other stuff that he was doing, and we just hit it off immediately. The first time I met him, he was in Beverly Hills, like riding a dirt bike, and was like trying to walk it, and he couldn't even really ride it very well. Yeah. But he was trying to walk it, and he had another guy there that could ride the hell out of one, and trying to teach him different things. But he quoted my lyrics to me from Loyalty, and the song wasn't even out yet. So that was like the first thing he ever said to me. And before the night was over, he was standing on the kitchen island and like popping bottles, and just he was like the life of the party. So but from that point forward, I mean, I was part of the entourage. I was with them. It was before Kid Leroy got with us, but yeah, we were just running around from Airbnb to Airbnb, and then eventually the song came out about a year or so later.
And that was the Ring Ring song?
Yeah, the Ring Ring song. So it came out about a year or so later, and we had been running around the country. I was basically just watching him from backstage while he was performing every which way. And then after the Ring Ring song come out, I started to perform with him, and we toured for a little bit. And then my career started to take off in 2019, and I caught the attention of Post Malone, so I'd eventually sign with Post in a joint deal with Post and Juice, and I was super excited. My career was just starting to really take off, and Juice was very excited about the deal. Post was very excited about the deal, and I signed it. And Juice died the very next day.
Stop.
So it was. I mean, I was very excited for a solid day about that contract, and then it got so dark. You know what I'm saying? Like Republic, on paper, and nobody knew what to do. You know what I'm saying? It was like I've got a deal between all these partners. You know what I'm saying? Now there's this percentage that's up for grabs, kind of thing, and then for the next 6 months we were all just shook, you know, and like devastated, and then all of a sudden the labels come back around like, I don't know what we're gonna do here. You know what I'm saying? Like we're having to renegotiate the entire thing, and in this span I feel like my career really took a hit, but which was the least of my problems at the time, because I mean everything was just coming to it just came to a complete halt, and nobody knew what to do. I mean, and then Bibby, you know, to this day runs into this problem. Like, does he release the records? Does he not? You know, and then he gets a lot of hell from Juice WRLD fans, so-called fans that came around after his death. You know, trying to give him grief on how he executive produces it and stuff like that. But Bibby's a genius, and I think Juice would have wanted his songs to come out. So, I mean, otherwise, why would you have, you know, Juice would record 9 songs in a day, bro. Unreal. Like, literally, just sitting here. That's all he did, you know. Wow. He was a machine. And I remember I would record 9-10 songs in a month and feel like I really did something, you know. And I'd be like, wow, man,
that's a lot of records.
Working, and he would literally sit there, I mean, 6-7 hours of a day with his guy, you know, right by his side, and they would be knocking him out. You know what I'm saying? And everywhere you were, I mean, they set up in this Airbnb and they go set up over here. You know what I'm saying?
I've seen videos of him just like having the scrappiest setups, like he just recording anywhere.
Him and Max Lord would just be, you know, going nuts, dude. And I mean, you could go in. I'd be in all the Airbnbs running around with them. They'd get these mansions of homes, and you could go sit in on a session and literally be a part of 8, 9, 10 songs in one setting. So
wow.
Yeah, and he would let you chime in. He would sit there and go ham, dude. You know what I mean? And a lot of times you're just sitting there watching a master at work, you know, the master class of and it was just something to see. But yeah, him and Max Lord had such a chemistry that they're punching and running just wide open for 9 songs straight, and he'd just load up another beat, you know. And I don't even know if he chose the beats, you know, if Max was just like, oh, this one's a good one, boom, throw it in, and he would just go, you know. And sometimes he would write one song to it and write a completely different song to that beat. And write a different, you know, and then be like, I think I like this one. And you know how it is when you record a song, you listen to it over and over and over again, you know, and it's like the new thing. He had practically a mixtape a day that he was, 10 songs, you know, that he would be listening to, and then the next day he'd go record 10 more. So you know, I could imagine, I thought I was doing something, and then after linking up with him and just being the first couple of months, I was just like, dude, I gotta step on the gas. You know, it's like this dude is.
It's got to be super motivating, for sure.
Absolutely. He was a monster.
Were you on the plane when he passed?
No. I was here actually with my family, and I got the news, and sadly, you know, I saw it like everybody else was seeing it. My phone was blowing up, you know, about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was here. You know, I'd been on those plane rides several times, and we'd been all over the place, but no, I was not there for that one. And you know, when I remember waking up. And this was probably maybe the third or fourth time that I'd heard that he was dead. So, and the rest being rumors, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because this wasn't the first time that he had, you know, an overdose in a sense. And he had, for the last like 3 months, there was several times that he actually was having seizures and stuff from all the drugs he was taking. And so, and everybody was speaking up, you know. Allie at the time was on him about it. Bibby at the time was pushing him to go to rehab. Chris Long was saying stuff to him all the time. Max Lord was saying stuff all the time, you know, like, you got to slow down, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're doing too much, and trying to stop him, but there just wasn't no stopping it, you know.
There was a video that I saw, I think it was Max Lord, it could have been someone else, but he was saying, like, the Percocets, man, like, you gotta, like, tone it down.
You got to, yeah.
And it just felt like he, just my observation, obviously I didn't know him, but
Yeah,
from
sure.
a third party, it was like, it's almost like he knew, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it felt like he knew that what he was doing was wrong, but he just had this, like, insane addiction. And,
Sure.
And I assume that also, correct me if I'm wrong, but a big reason for his ability to create was probably influenced by all the drugs that he was doing. I assume he was on things when he was in the studio.
Sure, yeah, he was, but I think that he was so used to it that I don't know that it necessarily altered. If anything, it altered the concepts. You know, I don't think he needed drugs to be able to do what he did, and maybe if he was sober, it would be a completely different thing, but I think it would still be brilliant, genius. I think that, you know, he definitely knew that, and he was listening. I think he was even agreeing to go to rehab, you know, but it, like we were talking about earlier, like, it's you have to really step on it immediately. It's not something that you can tinker with and hope that it resonates and be done with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to keep hammering away. And you know, they all tried. You know, Bibby tried, G Money tried, Max Lord tried. They all spoke to Juice at some point. Allie as well would be mad at him, you know, sometimes for him doing too much or something like that, because he would, you know, he'd be rough. I remember we were sitting at Max Martin's house. If you're familiar with Max Martin,
Yeah, of
written
course.
so many huge records, and I was so excited to be there, and he couldn't stay awake. You know, he's like falling out and watching anime, you know, and we're at Max Martin's house, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, just trying to get a huge record in. And I remember being on video shoots, music videos for Fast and some of the other videos, and him standing and was, you know, falling asleep, just you know. But he did know that he needed to change, and I think that he was just too deep into it, so addicted that, you know, the withdrawals would have been insane. But I feel like a little bit more time would have done, would have changed everything, you know, or a little bit more urgency to, you know, a little more putting his foot down. But you can't say that his friends wasn't trying to speak up for the most part. I mean, he had people in his corner trying to talk him the other way. Those same people may have also been, you know, still have blood on their hands, like I was talking about. You know, I'm no saint. I was right there, bro. You know, his blood's on mine. You know, I was writing songs with him about drugs. I was there doing the drugs. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, I did some good, I did some bad. I tried to say some things from time to time. I also didn't want to come off lame and weak, but, you know, like we said, it's what really sucks is not having him here anymore. You know what I mean? So I think him talking about rehab, I was in my bed and my phone was ringing off the hook, but I had heard this rumor several times that Juice was dead, right? So I'm thinking maybe it's a rumor, you know, but I'm seeing it, and now it's on Google and TMZ's reporting it immediately. So I'm like, shit, you know, maybe this is real. And
Did you try calling him?
I tried to call his phone, and of course, no answer. And I'm texting, and then I was like, let me call G Money, who was, you know, his closest to him at the time, and I called him. I wrote a song afterwards called "It's All Bad," and the title I repeated 2 or 3 times because in the song, because when I called G Money, that's how he responded. I was like, he didn't know what else to say. He just kept repeating himself, and I mean, this is like moments, you know, and I mean, TMZ jumped on it so quick, and I'm panicking, you know, in the bed, and I called G Money, and I was like, bro, is this a rumor? You know, what's going on? Tell me, you know, what is this? And he just kept saying it. It's all bad, bro. It's all bad. It's all bad, over and over. That's all he could say. And I can feel it right now. Yeah. And I just, you know, didn't know how to feel, didn't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? Just another friend of mine. It was like every time, except for the friend that was you know, had been pronounced dead, you know, a month prior. I'd be picking up the phone trying to call, you know, to hoping that they're on the other end of it. You know what I mean? It was just another one of those instances where, you know, they're no longer with us, and it's too late, you know, to try to fix it.
Yeah. Dang. Man, that's really sad. And you know, I think I assume as a Christian, you know, you have maybe found some peace knowing that they're in a better spot, obviously in a better place,
Yeah.
and with the Father. I do want to ask you, just because I'm such a big Juice fan. I know Grant is too. Like, was the story of him like trying to swallow the pills because he was trying to hide from the cops? Like, is there truth to that?
You know, I've heard several different things. I haven't really got into great detail with those that were there, just because I feel like it's maybe the least of, you know, my concerns, I guess.
Yeah.
In the beginning, you know, I've heard, in the song that I did, I blamed the pilot because when everybody was pissed at the pilot for snitching. So I mean, they were there to pick them up when they got there. A lot of people did get in trouble for things that they had when they touched down. But I don't know the exact story. You know, I think I heard that Ali was pissed, you know, that he had done so many. I imagine he thought he could probably handle it because he had done, you know, that many before, but all at once and already on some and just pushing those limits. Like I said, he had already had the seizures and stuff prior, you know, but you know, it catches up with you eventually. You know what I mean? I don't know the exact story. I know that there was people there to pick him up because the pilot had notified him because he was afraid of getting in trouble because for being there and didn't know, and they had a lot of stuff on him. You know, pounds and pounds of different things, and you know, when you got money like that and you're young like that and you're in the thick of it, you tend to buy the bag. You know, you buy the whole lot. And there was many times where, I mean, tens of thousands of dollars was going down the drain in one sitting to have enough to cover, you know, and it was private flights and stuff like that. I mean, you know, so you feel like you can get away with it, you know, and not every pilot is gonna be good, you know. And a part of you can't blame somebody not wanting to get in trouble for it that didn't have no part in it, but you know, and it's like being in the car with somebody and saying that's not mine, or, you know, I didn't know it was in here, kind of thing. You still probably get in trouble for it, and it was a great deal of stuff. At the same time, I wish it were different, you know what I mean? So, but I can't say whether or not that's the reason he did it or if he just already taken an insane amount, but it is a little, it does seem like that could probably be the case. I never really asked those type questions with the team. So
Yeah, understood.
yeah,
Man, I think something that I've been very passionate about and trying to read and learn about is acceptance and the grieving process.
Mm-hmm.
And, when my mom got sick and I had some family members that passed, I started reading and trying to really become familiar with grief so that I could prepare myself for, the inevitable day of one of my close family members passing,
Sure.
so that I can get through the grieving process as quickly as possible so I can get back to being who I am for my family, my girlfriend, etc. And so, I'm curious if you don't mind like sharing like what your grieving process was like. But I also want to say, like, I think it's so beautiful that God gave you a chance to go on tour with Juice and sign with Juice and like have that moment with him prior to his passing. Like, I mean, that's like God's work. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if you don't mind sharing, like, how was the grieving process? And then,
the grieving process it started with regret. In the initial, like me, I'd already lost so many friends, so I almost felt like maybe it was a warning sign, that I just missed the cue, or I should have known better to let it go on and not try harder. Not that he didn't have a lot of people, and I think that's a lot of the reason was. Not to make an excuse, but that a lot of people was in his ear about it, and it didn't really change anything. But I started blowing a lot of money trying to get it off my head. Luckily for me, I've got a great family. I've got a great wife. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that was very supportive and there for me during tough times. And I hate to say we all have a time, but we do. None of us are going to live forever. So I think it definitely changed everything for me. The songs that I had out, like the one that the girl was inspired, that the girl liked, that I regret. I took it off YouTube the day after Juice passed, and my concept started changing, so from that point forward, I think I was trying to mask the problem. I think, I was trying to just remember the good times and you can prepare yourself for it, but it still hits you like a ton of bricks. So I don't think that you can mentally prepare yourself enough. It's still gonna hurt deep down. I think it might even hurt worse that you had this, that you knew it for so long and was trying to make yourself immune to feeling like, or trying to soften the blow, and that instead of doing that, you should have done this. I think that you turn it into it all falls on you. Maybe not for everybody, but people that are passionate and obviously you feel very strongly about what you're going through, and I think just judging by what you've said, there'd be a lot of regret. It would be a lot of I don't think you can soften that blow. You can, the idea of trying to would come back to you like you could have replaced it with something else. Like instead of trying to soften it, maybe you could have just tried to stop it in its tracks. Instead, maybe you could have put that energy there. But at the same time, yes, you have your own obligations and your own priorities and that sort of thing. But that's one of them. Yeah. So
I think for me it's been both. So like proactively being there for the family members that, for example, when my mom was sick, like being there every day after her surgery, taking care of her, walking with her, giving her food, like doing that, but also at night spending 30 minutes like detaching. And it sounds terrible. Yeah, it actually kind of does sound really bad now that I'm vocalizing it, but like I think it's me doing everything I can in my power now in the present to help the person that I love so deeply, but then protecting my future self. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I that's just been my process, but I feel like everyone has a different approach, right? And I've never actually lost somebody yet, so I don't know what it's like, and I can't even speak to it.
I wish I couldn't, and I honestly, after one, after two, after three, it still wasn't enough to really open my eyes to, like, you gotta, and I think that's why I say it to you now, like, before it's too late. Don't lose one, don't lose two, definitely don't lose three, don't lose one, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't know that I didn't learn from it, obviously. I didn't do enough, if you can put aside the awkwardness and the thoughts of the fear of judgment and that sort of thing, I think the big picture, I mean, what's really important is that, I mean, I don't even know that you would feel good knowing that you did all that you could. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't, nothing softens that
There's
blow.
Nothing that
nothing
it.
would. So you might as well do all that you can. So you at least couldn't say that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because besides the regret, it hurts, just in general. But the regret hurts more. And if you don't have any regret because you literally feel as if you did everything in your power, it's that gap that hurts more, that adds to that pain that's already there.
Yeah. So just trying to minimize the gap to the best of your abilities.
You have to do, I mean, and possibly stopping it from happening. That gap could be the difference. So, I don't think that you're trying to do enough just to feel better about it. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, it hurts the same, but at least you should try to do everything in your power to stop it, for sure.
Amen, bro. 100%. I really appreciate you, like, getting vulnerable, especially, like, with us just meeting
Absolutely.
for the first time.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Same to you. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. A lot of podcasts that I do, I'm giving my testimony, and I think, talking about, like, spreading the gospel.
Yeah.
I think there's more to spreading the gospel than just your testimony, but I think that it's, I used to think I don't want to push my religion onto people, and now I'm in this different headspace. Like, you're gonna get this word today. You know what I'm saying? Because that's
I don't get it.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't think it's optional. I think it's fundamental for Christianity, and I think it's our obligation as creatives to almost dig into that, rubble that we're familiar with, and free people from that debris, that find those that are cut from that same cloth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't get the testimony until you get tested, but I think I'm here really to shake the gates of hell. You know what I'm saying? To try to free people from that. So when I talk about it, I'm trying to speak to that person that's just like me, that might be going through the same things. And you never know, this alone, our interaction talking about, I mean, it could save your father's life. It could save someone else's father. It could save someone else's best friend. When they hear this and they're just like feeling that, and like they don't want to lose. A lot of people are dealing with that. Obviously, two people in this room, Grant may as well. It's very possible that that this interview alone saves a life, or that we spark the mind that will go and say something further, and I think that's, as a creative, that's our obligation.
Yeah. Yeah, God willing. I think the power of tongue is what you're referring to.
Sure.
And I think, man, I just realized the power of tongue, like, within the last year.
Mm-hmm.
And You're right, bro. Like even just like being in an elevator and saying something to somebody, or at the grocery store saying something to somebody, like a smile. You don't even have to say anything. You just like make a facial expression, and it can change someone's heart. And I think it sounds like you're doing a really great job of being very intentional with that. And so yeah, I hope people listen to this and are like, dang, I'm gonna go say that thing that I'm so scared to say.
Yeah, facts.
And I'm definitely calling my dad after this.
Yeah, got to.
I mean?
Yeah. You absolutely should. Yeah, I think. I mean, you know, it what's the song? If I Knew How to Save a Life, you know, I think that it. You don't realize the impact that you make on people. The power of tongue, you know, it can do a lot, and I feel like it's definitely your obligation to do so, if you have that power.
Yeah,
you know.
But I think everyone has that.
Everybody does. You know, you have to tap into it. People are scared, and I think that they definitely need to step up and say something. You never know how valued your opinion is to that specific person and what it might do for them to hear it. Some people just need to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I would love to switch gears a little bit because, you know, we talked about Juice, but it sounds like from my research there's been other significant people in your life that have made an impact, at least musically speaking, and I'm sure personally as well, but someone like Post Malone and Justin Bieber, you have that record Forever, which is obviously an incredible record.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, can you break down how that came together and how you met Posty, how you met Bieber?
So, yes, Posty came into the picture after Stick By My Side with NLE Choppa. So I was already with Juice, and I was putting out stuff on World Star, and Stick By My Side came out, and Post heard it, and so me and Post had a mutual friend in Tyler Yahweh, and Tyler.
I met Tyler, yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Tyler's,
he's dope. Yeah. So Tyler is the one that linked me and Post, and me and him was close, and Tyler and Juice was also really close, and Tyler. I get a FaceTime call, and it's Tyler Yahweh, but it's Post Malone on the other side. So I'm picking it up like, what's Tyler doing? You know, what's he want? And I open it, and it's Post Malone. He's in there smoking a cigarette, and I was like, what the, you know what I'm saying? Like, what are you doing? You know,
you never talked to him before.
Never at that point. And so him and Tyler was on tour. And they were apparently Tyler was like playing in my stuff or something, but Post already knew several of my songs front to back, and was like, they're back there like singing my songs and stuff on FaceTime, and he was like, dude, your music has been like the soundtrack of this tour that we've been on. We've been listening to it backstage like the whole time.
Wow.
And so I was, of course, flattered by that. Post was huge, you know, and very likable right off the jump. You know what I'm saying? He's a really cool dude. And he was like, I want to meet you, man. I want to, you know, fly out here and link up with us. Let's hang out and stuff. So it initially started off just friends, you know, hanging out. And after we hung out 4 or 5 different times at different locations on his tour, and it would literally just be like, bro, come hang out with us in Minnesota, or come to New York. We did, you know, Madison Square Garden and different things. He had like a weekend in Madison Square, so we was there for a weekend. And then at some point he started poking around, like, who you signed with, and what are you doing, you know, and this, that, and the other. I think it was obvious that I was not as well off as they were money wise. My clothes probably wasn't up to par and shit like that. But he was like, so you know, what's your deal, you know? Because he saw the potential and you know, loved my music obviously, but I wasn't quite where I, you know what I'm saying, wanted to be. So I think he started poking around. And at first, he wanted to just buy me out of every contract I was in, and have me right alongside him. But once he caught wind of Juice being, you know, when I was signed to Juice, he started kind of thinking maybe this could be a collaborative thing. And of course, Juice was excited about it also. So those conversations started happening, and then months later, you know, we ended up trying to make it a deal. But Justin Bieber came maybe 2020. So Juice passed in December of 2019. Justin hit me up randomly, and I want to say he had heard, I don't know exactly what song it was, but he had heard some of my stuff online, and he all of a sudden I'm getting messages. He commented on one of my photos because he apparently had sent me a message in my DMs on Instagram, and I didn't see it, and it's from Justin Bieber.
That's
Imagine,
crazy.
you know,
How did you not see it?
Instagram, it's got requests, and there's there's a primary folder.
I feel like
and
if
a
Bieber
general
DM'd,
folder.
it would be like right at the top.
You would think,
You know?
they just pinned. This is Justin Bieber. You
Yeah.
should you should see this. I've got a lot of them. The request folder, like the top request, that's like supposed to be mine's jumbled up. It doesn't work like it's supposed to. It's a shout out to Instagram. But if it did, I wouldn't have missed it. You know what I mean? But I don't know that I'm checking it like that anyway. But he commented like, check your DM. And so all these comments started flooding underneath it, like, dude, Justin Bieber's trying to get in touch with you. I typed it like they're all on computers. Justin Bieber's trying to get in touch with you. So I'm seeing notification after notification, and I was like, what? Like Justin Bieber wants to, that's like Elvis Presley hitting you up. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, so I checked my DMs, and he was like, dude, I really like your stuff. And he's also a Christian. I almost said big Christian. He's always also a Christian. And, but he, he was like really in that wave at the time, like getting real spiritual and stuff. We had a lot of like spiritual conversations and stuff like that. And he was more so on it than me at the time. I think he inspired a lot of it, honestly, because he was on this huge platform, but yet he was talking about God and stuff like that. So shout out to Bieber. But he hit me up and was like, dude, your music's incredible, and I can really feel something when I listen to it. It's very emotional, and this, that, and the other. And then wanted me to jump on a song. So initially, Post was not. It was just going to be a song with me and Bieber. But I knew that him and Post were cool. There was a time when Post was like touring with Bieber and stuff. So in one of our conversations, I told Bieber like, Post, I'm signed to Post, and he was like, oh, okay, cool. He was like, I think at some point, Post was on the song, and Post was actually the one that slowed down the process of us ever making a music video, which led to us never doing a music video for the song. Yeah, he was on tour and doing some different things, but I am fortunate Post was on there. But it was like a top 25 song, and with a music video, I would have like skyrocketed. But you know what I'm saying? For me, I mean, maybe I would have to be with heavyweights like Justin Bieber and Post Malone, and then this unknown dude. That's definitely going to do something for me if it's in a music video form. You know what I'm saying? But it still did numbers. I'm still very blessed to have been a part of it. And but yeah, Bieber, they just saw my stuff, at some point. Tyler put it onto Post, and Bieber found it on his own, I think. I don't know who showed it to him, but he just reached out like, your stuff's dope, Yeah. I think I've always been more of an artist, you know what I mean, as opposed to maybe a label artist. I've always been that rebellious, like, I shake my fist at the labels. Not really, but
no, that makes sense.
I know how they work, but
yeah, for sure.
I'm not mad at labels. I actually I used to be that guy.
Yeah.
But now I understand it. You know what I mean? And so I'm not mad at labels anymore.
Yeah. I used to work at Interscope in Capitol, and I was so confused, man. Like, just the way that even the artists were making money, like, it felt like no one knew what was going on except for the people at the top.
Yeah, sure.
Who, by the way, you would never see because they were just like locked up in some room.
Right.
And it's just like, it felt like they were trying to hide all this, like, hide everything, keep the secrets so that the people didn't find out how things really went down. And so every time I hear a successful artist talk about labels, it's always kind of similar to yours, where it's like, you're like, like, I don't know if I really need this,
Sure. If you don't have the funding, for sure. I think they're like a bank in a sense, But a label, in my experience, they walk as slow as you walk, and they run as fast as you run. So if you give them the ammunition, they're there, But it's fickle. It's very dependent on how well you're doing. And but that's up to you. It's your obligation. And it shouldn't be theirs, I don't think, they're going to pour money at what's making money. It's a business. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Rightfully so. They have that right. And but it is hard for an artist. So I think you know, especially if you blow through that bag, you know, they give you a bag, you blow through it, and then you're just sitting there like, okay. And they're, because they're the money, they have the reins. You're depending upon them to give you the green light on anything. So, you know, they control the money in a sense. And then now that you're recouping, paying interest on it, and you know what I'm saying, like you may not see another dollar, especially if the first one didn't make a whole lot of money,
for
you
sure.
know. And I went about it wrong. So I got a big budget with Republic my first go around, and I had a lot of artists that I had written songs for that I could get on. I was like, I'm gonna hand them a silver platter. This is, I can get Chris Brown on a record, I can get Little Baby. And my thought was like, this is the label's money. You know, so I was hitting them up like friends, like, bro, I'll give you $100,000. You know, I was hitting them like, bro, like, I got a budget here, you can have some of it. You know what I mean? And so we was spending a grip and on songs that I could have got for free. You know, on some love stuff, because I've written songs for most of those artists I speak of. So
you got a little reckless there.
I did. Well, not, you know, I didn't know the money could come to me. You know, otherwise I probably would have pumped the brakes. You know, what they didn't spend on that budget would have went in my pocket. So, you know, but at the time I was just like, yeah, here, you know, take it. Because I thought if we didn't spend it, it would just go into the abyss or something. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, I'm going to spend every dollar we can. But then, you know, it added to the recoup. And if your record doesn't sell what they spent, you know, and some, then they are hesitant to do another. So I was kind of faced with this, like, do we do another second album? And I was ready, you know, like, I got to do one now or I'm going to lose all the momentum. And they were like, you know, let's see if we make some more money first. But I think a lot of issues, not to go into like artist, you know, development, but I think a lot of the issues, you don't really know what to expect. An artist doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing. There's nobody sitting around going, this is step 1 and step 2 and step 3. You're just kind of sitting there shaking your head, scratching your head, you know, not knowing what's going on or what you should be doing per se. And they're not necessarily, you know, and a lot of times artists deal with, well, go do TikToks. You know, you got to do TikToks because that's where it's at. You know what I mean? And they don't want to hear that, but it is where it's at. So like you do have to be on social media, but you know, I just feel like an artist gets in this weird place when they sign a deal and they have to recoup it back because they're no longer making money. They've already blown the wad. You know what I'm saying? Taxes kicked my ass, and you know what I'm saying? It was a lot that I didn't know, you know, that I learned the hard way, and still trying to maneuver through that sewer. So
yeah,
you know,
totally.
You know.
Yeah, taxes are bad, especially in California.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I want to know when you first came out on the Juice WRLD record. I remember there being comments about like industry plant.
Right.
Like, what do you say to that? Like, what was your reaction?
I don't think there is any industry plans.
Yeah.
You know, I highly doubt, from my experience with labels, and you know, they're not picking artists out of a field and saying, I'm going to grow this artist to be massive. You know what I'm saying? They try to be a part of something that's already moving. So, you know, in order to, I mean, a true industry plant would be somebody that they heard at a local karaoke bar and was just like, dude, this guy's got the potential. They don't do that, bro. You know, they're going to look at your Spotify numbers. They're going to look at your Instagram followers, and they're going to be like, because what they've been blessed with, oversaturated with, is artists that take it upon themselves to make their careers happen if they don't, and they micromanage, and they're like, you know, so you're dealing with two different breeds. An artist that, and I hate to say this for those of you that fit into this category, but for an artist that mid-20s, doesn't have a music video out, you know, wants to be a music artist, you don't want it bad enough. And I'm just got to be straight up with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have sympathy for artists that don't want it as bad as I do. You know, I'll have artists that I used to work with when we were 14, 15 that are mad at me because I didn't come back for them when they hadn't released a record in 10, 15 years. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you wanted it at one point, bro, but you never wanted it like I did. And I can't sympathize with you because I can't empathize with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I you know, what a lot of these artists do is like waking up in the morning for me. You know what I'm saying? Like writing a song, recording it, mixing it, mastering it, and throwing it out into the world and hoping that it catches fire is something I do on a daily basis. It's not, you know, I don't throw it out into the world, but I'm writing and recording thousands of songs to get to that 1, 2, 3, 4 records sometimes. And not all the time, but because, you know, at the same time, I've gotten this habit of wanting to drop, and I'm really just maintaining. But I'm learning to go for more fans, you know, to try to be selective like an actor is for his roles, you know, and really try to put these masterpieces, because they say it just takes that one record, and it's true. But I can't I can't sympathize for somebody that doesn't want it as bad as me. And if you don't, then I don't care, bro. Like, and that's how labels, I think, look at it. When you've got somebody that writes and records and mixes and masters and produces, and he just edited his own video and he just shot it, or he's got videographers that he hires and he's coordinating that, you know what I'm saying, and building these relationships. They're also networking. They're looking into the Instagram post, and they're looking into the marketing, and they're thinking about the branding. They're creating the vision, and you got this person that can really sing well, that wants it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't
hard
think
work
there's
beats talent every time.
every time, because there's plenty of talented people that are working hard to get what they want because they want it that bad. So I don't have any sympathy for those that think that they want it and don't want it that bad. I have one artist, and I'm not going to call him out. He's a good friend of mine. Threw a comment at me like I should have came back for him. This was not that long ago, and I had another big name artist that I spoke to was like, dude, you should do a song with him. And this was, it's been about 6 months, and he hadn't sent me the first song. And he's got excuses for why he hasn't recorded anything, and he's got excuses for, you know what I'm saying? You don't want it, bro. Yeah. And I can't want it for you. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, and you can be mad at me because I wanted it bad enough to go get it. And you know what I'm saying? And I've spent dedicated, but it's not my fault, bro. It's not my, and I'm not,
for sure.
It's not my priority. I want it for you, but I can't do it for you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. If I could, I don't think I would, because you don't want it bad enough, bro. You know, I see people that want it bad, worse than you do, and I'm not where I want to be. So, and I don't have time to even tinker with it. You know, I've also got friends I don't have to do that with. You know, in this business, you know, I'm friends with Post Malone. I'm friends with No Cap and all these different, you know what I'm saying? Like, that I see grinding on a daily basis. And when I see them, when I talk to them, it's, hey, bro, what up? You know, we play a little catch up. He goes and does his thing. I go and do my thing. He doesn't need me. He doesn't rely on me to make his career happen for him. And you got to get in that mentality and stop blaming other people and get your ass to work. Or I don't care, bro. You know, you know, Amen, take some accountability. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not my dream. I can't even count on the people I'm paying to really care about my dream as much as I do. You know what I'm saying? Because they have their own dreams. I shouldn't expect them to want it as bad as my whole team. I got a great team. You know, I got the Avengers of a team, but I can't expect them to just make my career for me, or we're going to go at their pace. I can't allow other people to determine my pace. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, if I did, I'd be sitting here doing nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
focus on everybody else.
Yeah, man. I mean, you gotta go, dude. You have to go 100 miles per hour, or you're already behind. Yeah. You know, a lot of these people, if they were moving any slower, they'd be going backwards, in my opinion. And you know what I'm saying? It's like, you don't want it bad enough, and you can't convince me otherwise, because you damn sure, I don't think that you want it as bad. I've got more in my pinky, you know what I'm saying? And I mean, ambition and determination goes a lot further than talent. You know what I'm saying? And if you got the talent, you at least need to be doing the content, you know what I'm saying, to try to match my energy, bro. Don't, I'm not going to, nobody reached down and grabbed me, and they didn't have to. And I didn't wait on them, didn't count on them, didn't blame them. You know what I'm saying? So you got to go get it. And I think there's no industry plans for that specific reason. There's plenty of talent out there.
Right.
You can go looking for it and find it anywhere you want to. They start trying to look at you and figure out, do you want this bad enough? Are you working hard? And they've got a big line to go through, bro. And there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of beautiful people singing songs.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? That want it 20 times more than you do. Yeah. And step up or forget 100%. About it. You know what I'm saying? Go do something else.
Yeah. You got to have that discipline, man.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that fire that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to dig deep into like where that work ethic comes from, because like, I feel like you either kind of have that or you don't. And I feel like you can learn it too.
Sure. Maybe.
But like, where does that fire to be successful and to impact come from? For
you? I think at an early age, for me, sports, I was very competitive. And, in sports, you learn, I don't know if you played sports growing up. So, you learn a lot of leadership. You learn a lot of discipline. You learn a lot of, I was kind of a lazy, I was already good. I was, one of the better players on the team most of the time. So a lot of it, sometimes that would slow me down. But in music, I became very passionate. I wanted it. It became this fire. At some point, I came too far to turn around and go back. This is all I got. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's feeding my family, But there was a long period where I was broke and I was struggling, and, there was no plan B. I didn't want to go to college. I didn't want to go work a 9-to-5 and work for somebody else to build their dream. I wanted to do this, and I wasn't going to let people tell me I couldn't. And they all told me the same thing. And it was like, you got to go to medical school, and you got to, do the sure thing. And
I see you as a doctor.
I was just, I was never that thing, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, I couldn't find what I wanted to do for a living in an index, a college index. You know what I'm saying? I'm flipping through, trying to figure out what 2-year, what 4-year, looks like, and what's the salary. And it wasn't in that book, dude. And I was just like, I gotta do this. This is what I want. You know what I'm saying? And I wasn't sure if it would ever fizzle out. I don't think I even thought about it. This is what I wanted, and everybody that tried to tell me that's not what I should be doing became an enemy of mine. It was like,
get them out of
I'm
there.
going to show you. And I had people very close to me, that I mean, even my parents, and they've been very supportive over the years, but they tried to, you got to have a plan B. They was trying to think logically, like you have to have something to fall back on. You have to, this may not, this is a 1 in a million chance. I heard all of those things, not everybody makes it. A lot of people try, and I got a lot of that so I changed that talk to my kids. I'm like, you can do whatever. At the same time, my mother always told me, you can do anything you set your mind to. My dad inspired me to write lyrics in the first place, whether he knows that or not. Just playing me some old like John Mellencamp songs and us talking about lyrics. Yeah. So, and me knowing the impact that it makes and the bond that you create just from laughing at a set of lyrics, or, you know what I'm saying, feeling something, he put that in me. So I just feel like, and I forget where I was even going with this, but no, you can't. I think that you do learn it, but over time, and but you gotta have that. You gotta have determination. If you don't, you got nothing, bro. Yeah. You really have nothing.
You gotta want it.
Everybody's got talent. You gotta want it.
You gotta want it.
Yeah.
I want to understand your recording and creative process.
Sure.
So can you break that down? Like, what is an hour in the studio with Clever look like?
I guess it just depends. A lot of my writing, it's never the same formula over and over. So sometimes I like to write on piano. Sometimes I like to write on guitar. A lot of times I have a much better piano player or a much better guitar player in the room producing. Yeah. So in Nashville, it's very, it's a lot more common to sit with writers. I don't like anybody to touch my top line. So I write all my lyrics 100% and all of my melodies for the most part. Now there has been an exception on the last couple here and there, not all of them, but where I've sat in the room with some people. But the people that I sit with, I'm very particular about it. I won't just sit with anybody. So
Yeah.
I want to write with people that would write lyrics that I would write, or on the level that I prefer. So I've written with Kelly Sheehan. I've written with David Ray out in Nashville, who I consider just genius level lyricist.
Yeah.
And but I'm very. You can't just put me with anybody, and I'm not to be cocky. I would just prefer to write it myself. You know what I mean? I've wasted a lot of time in writing rooms. You know what I'm saying, with people that were trying to throw lyrics out there, or like, dumb mine down, or not agree with what I wanted to say. You know what I mean? So I think you kind of have to find that chemistry, but it's always different. There's never a typical, the same formula. Sometimes people send me beat packs. You know how it is.
Yeah.
But now that I'm kind of moving away from that whole genre, it's less beat packs, more, let's get in the booth, let's get in the studio and jam, or or I'm writing on guitar and then we produce from there. But sometimes I'm sitting with producers and letting them do their thing. Just depends. It all. I'm a lyrics guy, so a lot of times I've already got the concept and the lyrics in my head, or written down before I like to go in.
Are you ever punching in? Like, do you ever just like throw a beat on and then go in there and freestyle?
Yeah, I used to a lot more. And coming from like a freestyle background too, I used to do it a lot more, but not as much. No, I think there was a time where everything was raw, and I was like even clearing my throat on a record, or I'd mess up and just keep it. Who cares? You know what I'm saying? One take all the way through. And then there was a time where I was punching in, freestyling as I went. But I think my pen game is, it's a whole different animal. It's
Dang.
like you pull the pen out, like it's like a grenade with the pen out, right?
Wow.
And I think it's impressive to be able to freestyle, and I can do it all day, but, and I can come up with some cool stuff freestyling, but, I'd much rather write it and be able to twist it and turn it anyway. I might change it 100 times now. I've turned into Dr. Dre at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I'll listen to it and I'll hear one word that I pronounced in a weird way, and I'll be like, nope, I got to go back and cut that. You know what I'm saying? And we'll repunch. So I'm fine tuning a lot more nowadays. Yeah.
What I love about you, and you're up there for me, like top 10 artists for sure.
Oh wow, thank you.
For real. And you have records where you say, like, you had commentary on one record about police, I think brutality.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. Was it Apartments?
Wooden Box, probably maybe Apartments as well. Yes,
Yeah.
Wooden Box was one that was very much directed at police brutality. Yes.
Yeah. So you had that, and then obviously Loyalty. You talk about Loyalty.
Mm-hmm. With a lawyer's
fee.
Yeah, right.
So like you have these like very interesting, versatile lyrics across all your records, and now you're doing country, which we'll obviously talk about. But break that down for me. Like where and why were you inspired by, or to speak about police brutality in particular?
Well, I've definitely dealt with some, in my years. So in 2012, I was arrested 9 times. And so a lot of it was indictments, I'd do something stupid, and then more would come out on the case, and I would get put in another investigative hole type thing. So I dealt with a lot of it, you know what I mean? I've been slung on cars, on the hoods of cars many a time by police. There was a time when I guess, the police, I had the wrong idea about, it in general. I think I found a respect for the system after going through it. But at the same time, I also was profiled many a times if I had one of my black friends in the car with me in the hood. Why were we there? Getting pulled over as if the only reason we could be there was drugs or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And although sometimes maybe that's what we were doing there. It was very obvious that was the only reason we got pulled over. So even being a white guy in a black neighborhood, I'm profiled. You know what I'm saying? To be in the car with another black man in the hood, like they look at you like, why are you here? Like you have to be here for drugs. And I think that's a weird way to look at it. You know what I mean? And I think just coming up, especially in Alabama and the South, you know what I'm saying? The cops are very like, you know, to a white guy and a black guy together, like, no, this got to be weed, or, you know what I'm saying? Something like that. Yeah. So, you know, I think just dealing with that sort of thing, I at one point felt like I didn't have any power. You know what I mean? Like at times they would take my power from me. They'd put me in a box, and at the same time there was a lot going on, you know, and it was just an everyday thing for them. You know, it definitely struck a chord a few times, and I felt like it was worthy of a concept.
Do you still have a negative outlook towards police? Like, do you feel a type of way?
I think it's just like, you know, like we was talking about Christians in a church. It's like there's good and bad. So, you know, you're gonna have Christians that'll judge you in church. You're gonna have Christians that are there for the right reasons, that want you to, you know, to actually walk the walk. And you're gonna have good police, and you're gonna have some that are, you know, it's just the way it is. So I am proof that the system works. You know, before I started getting locked up and really did some time, I was walking these streets full of pride, and it was in a jail cell that I humbled myself, that I hit my knees, started praying, and you know, got this jailhouse religion, as they call it. But I had plenty of time to sit there and think about it and do the right thing. And but I think, you know, I remember I was sitting in a courtroom, and my son, who's now 10, fixing to be 11, he was a month old, and I was facing 10 years in prison. And, you know, with one person able to decide whether that was a yes or a no. You know what I'm saying? And I remember telling the judge, like, I just want to watch my child have ice cream for the first time. Like, and I like broke down for a second, could have cried. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could hear it in my voice. I broke a little bit. And instead of like crying for sympathy and continuing on, I just sucked it. I just cleared my throat. Like, I'm not going to sit here and cry, you know what I'm saying? So I cleared my throat and kept speaking. And about that time, the judge looked up at me and saw somebody that was, I don't want to say playing a tough guy, but was trying to be tough in this hard situation. You know what I'm saying? Was still trying to be a man at the end of it all. You know what I'm saying? And maybe saw me as a real person. And though I was really emotional and could have cried in that moment, saw somebody that was like, okay, he's just been taught to be a tough guy. You know what I'm saying? And thought he was doing the right things. I mean, a lot of mine was like fighting and some assault charges. I did a lot of stuff I wasn't supposed to do, but I was looking at 10 years, and my son's 10 today. You know what I mean? So I had a second chance, you know, and I had to do probation for the next like 4 years after that. I was stuck in this state for 2 years without being able to leave. Moved my probation over to California. Wasn't able to leave California for a couple years. So I went through it, but I was proof that the system works. I came up from that. I was able to grow up, and I didn't spend 10 years behind bars and miss my child's entire life at this point. Wow. You know, so to know that he's 10 and to know that I was looking at 10, it really puts it into perspective for me. Like, I could have missed every single bit that I've seen so far, and or saw it from glass. You know, with them, I wouldn't have be the impact on my child's life that I have been at this point. And if that's not enough to really turn it around, you know what I'm saying? Then, but I do feel like I have a different respect for the system because of it.
Yeah. Thank God that you were able to get through that, man. That's incredible.
For sure.
But, you know, we see stories of people on the other side where they've been wrongfully locked up for 20, 30 years, and then they come out. And I love that even people like Kim Kardashian are now, like, going in and fighting for their rights. do you think our justice system is fair? Because in my mind, it's like, you know, I've been in jury duty before, and it's like, you're gonna trust me to make a decision? Like,
Right.
I barely know what I want to eat today. Like,
Right.
like I'm not the person for this,
Yeah.
right? And so, do you think there's like a better way? Like, is there a better way to evaluate whether someone should be locked up for life and lose their rights to live?
I think that there's definitely, you know, some laws that we should change. There's, you know, prison reform is a real topic. I think, you know, as far as politics go, yeah, there's a lot that we should do different. I don't know about, you know, how they go about it. The judges, I mean, everybody's elected, right? So, you know, I feel like the power is in the people's hands, whether, you know, it's more of a campaigning game or not. I think there's ways to go about it. That's the system that we got. I don't know what would be a better system. I think that we should focus more on trying to rehabilitate people. I think that we should spend less time trying to just lock people up left and right and try to actually fix their problems. Because I do think that there's people dealing with things that, you know, are manageable. That, you know what I mean? If we were to kind of go about it a different way, that it would definitely make a difference. I think that, you know, maybe the system itself. I mean, one of the counties I was locked in up for months on end, it was very gray, and it was very like, you're in a jumpsuit, you're in a gray room with gray walls and gray floors, and the lights, you know what I'm saying, like it was a 24-hour, you got one phone call, I got out for 30 minutes at a time, once a day, you know what I'm saying, for months. And if you create an animal by putting them in a cage, you literally make somebody hate the system and want to do harm to people, you know what I mean, to get out of here. And, you know, that man also can't be a father to that child, can't provide for that woman, can't, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot we could do different, but at the same time, you know, I think it also starts with the person that they should also be held accountable for their actions. So it's a weird place. I think that as far as like marijuana charges and stuff like that goes, I think that's a little silly at times. I feel like they give people, I don't know about everywhere, but around here you get the same amount of time for that as you do like molesting a child or something. You know what I'm saying? Like that's somewhere in the same, you know what I mean? And that could be a little different. Like maybe it could, you know, there's definitely different things that we could do to be better. I don't think you should get a pass because it's a weaker drug either at the same time. So I don't know. It's a tough system to. Yeah. That's a tough question for sure.
I think it just comes down to love, right? Like our system's not built on love. It's built on reprimanding and consequence. Like there's no love, bro, and it's really tragic. Honestly.
Right. Yeah. They did nothing for me in jail that tried to better myself, try to fix the actual issue. You know, and I mean, I was eating junk. You know, it was comical what we were eating and
there's
drinking.
no black bean brownies in there.
There was no black bean brownie.
Right, however you
say that 4 times. No, you know, it's actually when I was in there was actually a big report of the sheriff. And I don't want to say his name or get, you know, harassed around town, but he's not there anymore. But he did this interview like, this is not the McDonald's. He did like a whole like, weird. This is not, you know, you ain't getting Pizza Hut. That's why he talked. You know, it was very country, but he was like, this is not a 5-star hotel. You know, and but it was like a viral thing but he was actually dipping into the food, like the fund, and he got caught because there was a kid that was mowing his grass and he paid him out of the fund on a check or something like that. Yeah, and he had bought like a condo or something with the money and shit, like in Florida or something on the beach.
Crazy.
With the fund that they were supposed to be feeding the inmates with, you know. And I was locked up during that time and we were eating. I mean, like we'd have, you know, sweet peas one day, carrots Tuesday, potatoes Wednesday, and then on Thursday you got like a mesh of all of those together, and you knew it was from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you're drinking Kool-Aid like out of a milk jug, so there's like a little bit of milk in there.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was some hard times.
It's rough. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have like chicken that was the same shape as the square tray that it was served in. You're like, what is this, dude?
Jeez, were you getting 3 meals a day?
Yeah, you get 3 meals a day. It's you'd be good to get like in the morning, like the boiled egg and a biscuit, something you knew was actual food. You know what I mean? And then you could buy like commissary.
Right.
You could get. I was loading up on Diet Dr Pepper, and
Yeah.
Doritos.
Was there like a TV screen in there? Like you able to like watch movies?
No. I had some violent charges. So I got a really bad temper. I don't know if you can tell.
Pretty nice.
I'm a very nice guy, but I go off the rail a little, and I've done better at. I've complete turnaround actually, but there was I had a little spat there, but so they put me in a on the floor in a unit with some of the ruffians. I was doing some pretty rough things. It's out there. It's on Google.
Dang.
Yeah. I was just yeah.
Being
That was rough.
Yeah. I'm fascinated by recently we saw Tory Lanez doing an interview out of prison.
Right.
There was a video that went viral of DDG holding the mic up to the recording in the studio, like up to the mic.
Right.
And Tory was like spitting his verse through the phone. And then you see people like Young Thug, who I hear is just like locked in recording when he's in jail, like pumping out records. And so there's two thoughts that come to mind. I'm like, first of all, these dudes are obsessed with what they do, and they're so committed to making music, no matter where they are. And the second thing is like just creatively. I mean, they're both incredible and genius. But were you kind of in the same boat? Like, were you cooking up in the jail cell?
Absolutely. Yeah, you got that time, to really write and stuff like that, and you want to come out firing. It's funny. I actually recorded one on the phone as well, and this was probably 13 years ago, but. I recorded one over the phone also. And funny story, I actually had my own radio show, a local. It was on a Clear Channel station, and I was, when I was 15, 16, I was doing freestyle battles, right? I would eventually do 106 in Park and stuff like that, but I was doing a lot of local battles when I was 14-ish, got noticed by a radio guy. So when I was 16, I was like, I had done it at 15, but at 16 I was on the air all the time in Birmingham. But I just had a little segment on a guy's show where people would call in and I would freestyle battle them live on the air, right? And it would be anybody. I mean, I battled grandmas and aunts and uncles. I mean, like young people that wanted to rap and stuff, But it was just all fun and games, and anybody could call in and he would put them through, and I would just sit there and we would freestyle battle live on the air. And I was 16 at that time, 15, 16, maybe both. But I forget why I even started. I eventually had my own radio show because I'd already had some experience on it and stuff. And after going on 106 in Park and some of the BET stuff I did back then, they asked me to have my own radio show here in town. And so I had my own show, but then every time I'd get in trouble and get arrested, they was put me in the newspaper, like, radio DJ, clever, blah, 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 blah. It was like this, they would name the radio station, like this radio station's DJ is now arrested again. And they had a lot to talk about. I was a big story around here at some point because it just kept happening and happening. Yeah. But I always knew they'd write me another article one day, something a little better. But I used to pre-record my show every now and then. And a funny thing, the program director was always pissed at me because I was taking collect calls from the county jail here. Yeah. And I was loading them up. I mean, they'd call me 10, 11, 12 times a day. It was the only station you could pick up from the county. So they'd call me and I'd keep accepting those collect calls and running up the bill. But because their name wasn't in circulation much, they was calling me every time they'd get a chance to use the phone. They were calling my station, and I was answering for them. So then you
Yeah.
had girls on the outside that was calling to like shout out the people up there, and then they were shouting out, you know, some of the girl unit people and stuff like that. It got crazy. So at some point, my whole show, I'm like taking phone calls from the jail, and
Dang.
so when I got locked up, I was a big hit in the jail already. So which worked out to my benefit, but
Yeah.
I had pre-recorded my show for 3 nights. So when I got locked up and actually sat for a long time, the first 3 nights I actually could hear myself on the radio.
Oh, wow.
Because from the pre-recorded show, and it hadn't hit the newspaper and shit yet, so they didn't cancel my show. So I'm sitting there listening to myself from the county, and they were all bummed because they didn't have nobody they could call anymore. You know what I mean? To put them live on the air. So it was a whole thing. But I was actually editing. We were editing a music video that I just shot when I got picked up. So I never got to see the final version of this specific music video, but I had such a fan base here locally that the guards were like, you know, my nephew's a fan, and so my cousin's a fan. They actually let me see the music video that I never got to see.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? From my, you know, little window, but and from their cubicle, it was so far and so small, but I did watch it from there. But I was put in a unit that was a little rough, so they let me out for like 30 minutes a day or something like that. So you didn't have time to watch a movie or nothing. It was pretty rough. Yeah. I was running to the phone and running to the kiosk to try to get commissary, and I'm back up in the cell. So
Yeah. Is it rough. Through those? That's a crazy story. But is it through those battle raps that you got your name?
It is. Okay. Yes. I was 14. I was going by my last name, Huey, at the time, and so I wasn't too young to change it just yet. You know, I felt like 14, as I got plenty of time. Nobody knows me by this. So, but they were putting my name on flyers and stuff as my last name at that time to come and battle me. It was like $50 a Friday or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a little fly or something in here. It's
you
driving
get it?
me nuts. I thought I did, but I think I let him live. Really.
I got attacked by one of those. What was it called? The bug? A cicada yesterday.
No shit.
I got attacked, bro.
A cicada's like.
The ones that bzzz.
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
Come out like every 3 years.
Yeah, something like that. That's wild.
We like there was these
rare.
are the bugs that like make the really loud noise. We like were walking and we were like, what is that? And then the noise stopped, and all of a sudden just boom, it jumped at me, bro. It was like, I was terrified. Anyways,
you were chosen.
I guess so.
Yeah. So
maybe it's good luck or something.
Oh, what was the question again?
Cicadas, bugs. Where were we at?
Oh.
Talking about your experience in jail and that you were only let out for like 30 minutes at a time. That was the last thing you said.
Okay. I don't know. You had asked me something. I
brain farted mid-interview.
I thumped a fly, so it was like
Cool.
that changes everything.
You're right. It was your fault.
Yeah. The cicada. Yeah.
Oh, clever. Your name.
Oh, right.
There you go.
Okay, so I'm in a rap battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can cut that. We can edit that, right?
Now we're keeping it.
Okay. How boring for the last 30 seconds. No,
They're
I was just sitting
am I-
there like,
This
brownies,
isn't very clever.
black bean brownies. So I was in a freestyle battle. I'm going by my last name at the time, which is Huey, and this guy keeps throwing these W lines at me, and he's like, I'm taking the W. It was W this, W that for wins, right? And so to counterattack him, I'm using L for everything. I'm like, you know, I'm going to give you the L and blah, blah, blah. It was L this and L that. So in the line at some point, I said, you can call me clever because I won't see an L ever, right? And after the show, this guy comes up to me and he's like, what'd you say your name was? Clever or something like that? And I was like, no, my name's Huey, but I like that. I was a big fan of Common back then. So I was like, oh, wow. So I was like, you know, it kind of reminded me of Common. It was a common word. You know, it was the name Clever. I liked it. And I just stuck with it. I was like, you know, my name was Huey, but I actually liked that name, Clever. And it wasn't too early for me to change it. So
That's crazy.
Yeah,
but that bar that you said, I will never see an L ever, like that was just off the top.
Yeah, freestyle game. Yeah, Yeah, I think that's why me and Juice hit it off like we did, because we were immediately freestyling. His freestyle game was insane. So
People say that he's the best to ever do it.
oh yeah, he's killer, bro.
Yeah.
Real talk.
Dang. I've seen the videos of him, like one of his managers or something is just like, I think it was Pete. Shout out to Pete.
Yeah.
He was just like throwing out a word and he would just go with it, bro.
Yeah, he's like that. He's definitely like that. There's one where they're throwing words at him and he actually quotes my lyrics. It was his I think it was his security that says something to him. He's throwing words at him too, and he says loyalty, and he's like, in order to get loyalty, you got to pay a lawyer fee, and he shouts me out. Clever said that.
Crazy.
So I got to give him these royalties or something like that, and he was just a monster. But to be able to do that, to quote me and then say like I'm gonna give him his royalties because I used the word loyalty and lawyer fee, you know what I'm saying? Like, to do it in 10 seconds, I mean, not even that. I mean, just off the top, no thought behind it, you know what I mean? Just running wide open that's a different monster, bro.
Yeah.
But I think that's why we hit it off. Immediately, we were freestyling and stuff like that. I can remember several times. He was a big fan of, like, the guitar and stuff, too. So
yeah.
I'd be in my room, like, picking on the guitar, and if he heard me, he'd come in there, and we had some killer sessions that nobody ever recorded. You know what I'm saying? That was just me and him just going. So, and that's another thing, like, you see millions of videos of him freestyling. He's freestyling everything he did on track for the most part.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you how many times that he was just like murdering a freestyle where nobody was watching. You know what I'm saying? Like murdering a freestyle because he just loved to do this. You know what I'm saying? Just for me and you. You know what I'm saying? Like, he would sit here. You'd almost be like, okay, he's going again. You know what I'm saying? Like, because he would be sitting here with just us. He would just start, freestyling at you, and you're fixing to just sit here and get this. You know what I'm saying? For the next however long. He didn't have to stop. He would stop. You know what I'm saying? Like, he could have just kept on going. He could have, he could have just chopped you up for the next like 45 minutes if he wanted to. Yeah, no shit.
I wonder if that's something that he like was just born with, or like, is that something you learn? Is it a practice thing?
It's a practice thing. Yeah. You have to almost practice not fumbling. Like, instead of fumbling, just move on, because every rhyme doesn't have to be A, B. You know what I'm saying? So you have to learn to throw a line out there that doesn't necessarily rhyme and then get to it later. You know what I'm saying? Or bounce back and forth, start on something else, but go ahead and finish whatever you was going to say and just make it say whatever. But it's a learning thing for sure. It's something that you can teach yourself.
Yeah. I've tried it. It ain't working.
Yeah, I could teach you.
I would love that.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, you start. I'll throw words at
right
you.
Now?
No.
Don't say testes. Why do I feel like you're going to say testes?
Testes, 1, 2.
I don't think it does. What rhymes with testes?
Oh, man.
Check, please.
Yeah, there you go.
Sex.
See, but that's not the thing. You can't think about what rhymes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if you did, it needs to go right off the word. It's not like, what can I rhyme with and how do I lead to it? That's too much. You're already thinking too much. You've missed it. Yeah. You just got to go and then try to throw something in there at some point.
Yeah. Have you seen Harry Mack?
Oh, yeah. God, he's crazy.
He's good, right?
Yeah, he's very good.
Wow.
Yeah, he's insane. You can throw him like 10 words and he'll like go down the line of them. Yeah, that's wild.
I got to see him in Venice Beach randomly one day, and I was just like, my jaw was dropped. I was like, damn.
He's crazy. Yeah, it would be sick to see him at Venice Beach. I've seen his videos in Venice Beach, but the many times I've been to Venice Beach, I've never seen him. So
I haven't seen him in a long time.
Yeah.
You mentioned the guitar. And I know recently you've made a transition into country music, which is very interesting because, when I think of Clever, like the records that I personally like to bump, it's like Apartments and All In and, those types of songs. Forever, obviously, is a great record. But country, country is like such an interesting lane. And I think we're seeing it obviously like Posty, Beyonce, like people are now transitioning into it. So I'm curious with you, like what inspired the country transition?
Well, at one point I had a lot of people coming to me, pushing for it. And me and Post used to actually joke around. I've got posts on my Instagram from me and him listening to John Michael Montgomery in like 2018, 2019 maybe. And on the actual caption, it's like, the Illuminati. It was a joke, like the Illuminati is forcing me and Post to do country albums by 2024 is what my actual post says. In 2019 on Instagram of me and him listening to John Michael Montgomery. And there's another clip that went viral that was we were singing like Randy Travis or something, and Randy like reposted it, and I've always been a huge fan. I grew up on country music, we talked about corn and stuff like that, but when I was really young, I'm from Alabama. I'm also, born and raised Southern, camouflage, and I've got a farm. I've got chickens. You know what I'm saying? Like, country music's always kind of, it tells a story that I relate to. It is where I come from. You know what I'm saying? So I'm a huge Patsy Cline fan. You know what I mean? Just genius, just incredible. I can't say that my voice is not inspired by Patsy Cline. My lyrics, some of the storytelling that I do, I can't say it's not like Wooden Box. Like talking about, I got another song called Sorry for Your Loss. It's talking about, wooden crosses on the side of the road. Randy Travis with his 3 Wooden Crosses song. A lot of the songs that I grew up on are very country. I was listening to Travis Tritt and Vince Gill and Garth Brooks growing up.
Wow.
Regardless of my hip hop past, it's always been a dream of mine to stand in that circle at the Grand Ole Opry, and I actually got a chance to go meet with them and see the whole works and play for them and stuff just the other day. So the transition to me never really felt like a transition. It felt like a homecoming in a sense. It almost felt like I would just found myself. I think, I've got a touch of hip hop still in me, but as I've aged, it's not just about, I know it's the thing to do now. It seems like it's following a trend, you know what I mean? Jelly Roll did his thing and everybody started just kind of piling in from the hip hop scene, but I don't feel like I'm following a trend, more like I'm following the truth in a sense. I've got me a farm out there. I'm always listening to country, regardless that that's all you get on the radio here. You know what I'm saying? The station I worked at eventually turned into a country station as well. So it transitioned as well. So, but that's, it's something that's true to me. And I think to just stick to the same genre, to just stick to the same style of songs for the sake of being real is not real. You know what I'm saying? I think you got to be true to yourself, and if you're just doing it for how people might see it or if they judge you because it's not the way, dude. But I don't really see it like a transition. I see it like a homecoming in a sense. It's who I am. I'm just more finding myself and trying to turn over a new leaf. I know a lot of people rebrand at some point, try to redefine as something that's not what this is.
That's not what you're doing.
Nah.
You're following where you feel like you're being called to go.
Yeah, I've written country songs for a lot of artists. I've been writing songs as a ghostwriter for a long, long time, and I've actually written some fairly big country songs. I'm not going to go into them as a ghostwriter, but not liable to say. But yeah, I've been there for 10, 20 years now, so I'm not too far from it already. And but I will say that there was people that opened the door. I was making a country album before Post Malone came out with his country stuff, but me and him did joke around about it. Me and Billy Strings has been talking about doing records for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm in the space. I was already there.
Yeah.
Mentally.
Yeah. Who would you say are some of your biggest musical influences? Because it sounds like you've had exposure to like all kinds of people. I mean, some of the goats, right?
Sure.
So who would you say are like people that you look up to musically right now?
From people I've met, I mean, Juice is definitely that, from his work ethic to just everything in general. As far as people I've grew up on listening, I was a big Jay-Z fan lyrically. I was a big Robert Plant fan, vocally. So I feel like I'm somewhere in the middle. If Robert Plant and Jay-Z had a baby and then left that baby in a dumpster and forgot about it, and
mailed him some
it had
chickens.
to crawl out and get chickens mailed to it to feed itself. Yeah, that's me. But I'm inspired by a lot. I'm always listening to new stuff. Like I said, I can't say Patsy Cline wasn't a huge inspiration. If you listen to her stuff, you can hear me. You can hear her in me. You know, you can hear Robert Plant in me at times, and Jay-Z as well lyrically. So it's definitely been a big. I mean, I'm inspired by a lot of music artists. Bob Dylan was another, and some others. So I'm everywhere. You know?
I was telling Grant in the car on the way over here, I was like, you're such a layered individual. And I say that without even having met you.
Mm-hmm.
But just from the sonically listening to your voice and the versatility that you have, it just feels like the ability to make music that's so like diverse. Like you have to have gone through a lot of stuff and you know, have a lot of stories to tell.
For sure.
And I think that's so beautiful that you've, you know, you're combining hip hop and now you're doing country, and you're sort of like bringing your gift sort of across the spectrum of types of music, which is really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, versatility is a good thing. I think a lot of people, for the most part, listen to a bunch of different types of music. I don't think that anybody's just like one genre. I mean, maybe, but I mean, how can you like hip hop and not like R&B? How can you? You know what I'm saying? At times, at least, you know, you can't like soft rock and not like some heavy metal every now and then. You know what I mean? So, like, I think if you listen to most people's yacht rock or boat playlist or whatever, beach playlist, it's got a little bit of this and a little bit of that. It's a little everywhere. You know, I'm going to catch that.
Did you get it?
No, I don't know I did. Oh, man. If I catch it on camera, keep that in.
Can't say it's too.
Yeah, okay, good. Because that light's bright, so I was thinking maybe you'll just see it the whole interview flying.
You got to get your,
here.
I'm gonna beanbag gun.
We're gonna interview him at some point. Yeah.
Or that.
Let's see if we can catch him. This is on the way by. You know that cicada guy. Stop aiming at me. But yeah, I mean, I think I've been inspired by a lot of different genres. So you know, it's hard to. I feel like when I was doing hip hop music, they would say this is not hip hop. You know what I'm saying? And now that I'm doing country, they say this is not country. You know what I'm saying? And I feel I'm always a little left of center, but I think that's where I want to be. You know what I'm saying? I don't necessarily want to be limited to a genre. You know what I mean? But at the same time, a lot of the newer stuff I'm doing is very traditional country music that hadn't been released yet. And we're adding some touches visually that kind of are very versatile in a sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, instead of shying away from my hip hop stuff, I've been more, I want to do like a bolo tie, but it's like a Cuban link, or like, you know what I'm saying? I want to add some contrast. In the last video we did, red Solo cups, but you know, like the Dixie cup, but not like a beer, but I'm pouring like red wine in it or something like that. I want to add some contrast there and kind of be who I am. You know, I've got a C8 Corvette, not a big old pickup truck, but it's also wrapped like Dale Earnhardt, which is a little country. You know what I'm saying? I'm about 30 minutes from Talladega, so
for sure.
Yeah, the super speedway is just right over there.
Really?
Yeah.
We should go race it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down.
Let's
you
get
know,
it.
what do y'all? You Ubered over here now?
Yeah, we Ubered over here.
Your Uber does not want any smoke, bro.
Our Uber was jamming all the way over here. He was listening to Fabulous.
Fabulous.
Just
really like old school, like
just
that's let's
jamming.
go, dude. 90s. My wife would love that. She's on her 90s kick right now. So
yeah. Speaking of your wife, and you know, we talked about off camera. We don't have to get into too much detail, but I get the vibe that you're very family oriented.
Absolutely.
Like you really care about, you know, your kids and your wife. And shout out to her for the brownies. Again,
yeah, she's a killer. Yeah, she's a killer.
So like, where does family sit on your spectrum of priorities? Because I think for me, when I started making money, you know, I made a lot of money really fast, and a lot is obviously different depending on. For some people, it may not be anything. Maybe a lot for some.
Right.
But my ego got to me, and I started cheating on my ex-girlfriend, and I was buying the cars, the Rolls Royces, the watches, all this stuff, and I lost myself in it. And I started treating people around me as beneath, and thank God I've learned from that, and I'm now applying, you know, a better way to live to my life. But so money had an impact on me where it was my God, and now it's a tool to serve my family.
Right.
And so for me, it's God, it's family, it's health, it's, conversation, experience. So for you, like, where does family sit on that spectrum? And also, how does money play into your life overall?
I think, family's very important, especially a good woman. I think for a man, trying to move mountains, I think that a good wife reminds you why you're moving them. And I think if you've got that support, you can move the entire world. I think that, it can make or break. I've seen people that had potential that didn't have a good support system, and I don't want to say you should fully rely on it, but you should definitely be dependent on it to an extent. Having that support system that's going to help you out, and I think that's what a good woman does for a man. And where a man could do it on his own, having that rock next to you definitely can help you go a step further. And so I've seen some people that don't have that. So I feel very blessed to have that, very grateful to have that. And I think, there's people that I know that would love to move to a different city altogether, that are here because they're stuck in this relationship that's holding them back. I've seen people that want to go the distance and do things that they know they're capable of doing. They at least want to try and take a risk that they don't have the support from their wife, from their significant other, that would go a lot further. You at least got to try. You know what I'm saying? And you need that every now and then. You need that woman that's like, go get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and if you don't have that, I really feel for you. I think, you should go travel the world. You should go see the things. You should go tinker and try to, make something of yourself. And a good woman can really make a difference as far as that goes. Now, money, on the other end, I've also been very good to everybody around me money-wise. I did blow money. I bought all the diamonds. I bought all the cars, and but I also I gave my dad one of my classic cars that I bought, the $30,000-$40,000 like '66 Ford Mustang. Gave it to him. Gave my brother a Challenger that I bought after I bought me a couple of new cars. Just gave him something. I paid my mother's car off. I've thrown hundreds of thousands of dollars. I had a homie that produced my stuff that, I was keeping him afloat for months and months on end. At some point I had let him borrow so much money that I was like, I'm just going to pay you monthly, you know what I'm saying, to keep working with me, to keep you afloat. But there was also some people that felt they feel entitled to what's yours. And I had people that were, that I hadn't seen in 10, 15 years that were knocking on the door again. Like, what about me? We used to, sell CDs together at the mall when we were, and I hadn't seen you in 10 years, bro. Like, you wasn't with me shooting in the gym these last 10 years. So it's like, I don't know that money changed me, but it did change everybody around me at some point. You're expected to pick up the bill from time to time. You let people borrow money and they, you know what I mean? Like, you don't expect to get it back, or, I've paid for things I don't know that I could get the same from people in return, I've given people money that eventually didn't even need it, and still didn't really hit me back with it, or, you know what I mean? But at the same time, you got a good family, you got a good support system. Those people will look out for you, and you figure out who to look out for and who you can't, and who I don't think that there's anybody that I've done wrong, that's in a bad situation that I could have helped, that I should have helped, that that wasn't MIA for 10 years, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
before I really started to pop off. Maybe some people that was helping me a long time ago that might feel entitled, that but I don't know that money changed me as much as it changed everybody around me at some point. You know, I never got better than anybody else or anything like that. I think I did start seeing people like they were less ambitious than me, you know, maybe at some point, but and I blew the money, but as far as an impact, I think it kind of showed me who's who. And you know, it made me realize that you can't help everybody, and some people you can help and it'll never be enough. Some people you can look out for and they become accustomed to it, to the point where every time you see them, I had a homie, I had a fake friend that wanted me to help him in his career, and I had done more for him in his career than he's ever done for himself, and yet still looks at me like I didn't do enough. You know what I mean? And I used to feed this dude. I mean, there was times where like he didn't have enough food to eat, him and his mother both, and I was like taking them food and like letting him borrow money from here and there, and like helping him with his career, playing his music for everybody I could get it to. You know what I'm saying? And he was still at some point looking at me like, what else are you gonna do? What have you done for me lately? You know what I'm saying? And mad at me for not doing it. You know, I'm doing anymore. Yeah, and people get entitled. They feel entitled to at some point, and it's a weird thing. I personally could never feel. I can't understand it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's because I guess I'm on the other end of it, trying to go get mine. I'm not counting on another man to feed me and my family. You know what I mean? I don't feel like anybody owes me anything. So, but I've tried to do my thing. You know what I mean? That's all you can do. So.
Yeah. Dang. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you have a great perspective. Like it sounds like you were very giving to the people around you, and you still are.
For sure. You know, you gotta be.
Yeah.
But you figure out who you can and can't.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Yeah,
sadly.
for sure. Oh man, I've given a lot of money to people that I never heard from again.
Yeah.
But it's all good. You know, everyone I think comes in your life for a reason, and
For sure.
it is what it is.
You learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I'm so grateful, dude. I feel like I would love to. I could sit here and talk to you for like another 4 hours.
Let's do
But
it. No, I'm kidding. Not enough brownies for that.
Yeah, not enough brownies. But I do want to ask, you know, like really two things. Obviously, I want to know like what's next for you. Like, what are you excited about in terms of your life and music?
Right now, I mean, there's been times where I felt like my career was all but over. You know what I'm saying? Like it's on the, and that's easy to say from my standpoint. I mean, maybe not everybody sees it like that, but you're harder on yourself. You see the numbers go down. You see the writing on the wall. So I think there was times where, you know, I felt, I mean, I had teams behind me that wouldn't pick up the phone. You know what I'm saying? And now I'm very excited that I've got the team that I've got behind me. I've got a management group in the core out of Nashville. They have Bailey Zimmerman. They have Nate Smith. They got Josh Ross, and they're just killers, dude. I mean, just using their name dropping them around Nashville does enough. But Dan Dimtro over there is a killer. Avery that you met, the publicist, she's a killer. And then Leslie, my longtime manager. I've got such a team. The distribution company is Streamcut out of Atlanta, and everybody's ready to play ball. So I think, you know, just the people that I've got in my corner that are going hard. You know, I've got a social media team and Taylor Cunningham and some other people that are just, I mean, I couldn't ask for a better team. I literally have the Avengers of a team put together, and I'm very excited about that. There's been a lot of times I'm very grateful for it, because there's been a lot of times where I've had teams that are getting paid, that are making a cut, that I can't even get them on the phone. So, you know what I mean? And they're holding up the whole process. And just to have that's beautiful. We just met with the Grand Ole Opry, and I played for them, met some great people over there. Shout out to Jordan from the Opry. I mean, I thought it went really well, so I'm hoping that there's going to be a Grand Ole Opry debut at some point. But there's a lot of great meetings going down. I'm doing a show at Jelly Roll's new place, Writers Round.
Let's go.
On the 19th. Yeah, it's going to be really cool. And then We're getting a lot of podcast interviews, a lot of interviews on the radio and stuff like that. We've been talking with Sirius XM a lot on some radio play, and I just shot a great music video yesterday. As far as the distribution company supporting it financially, they're on top of it and really killing it right now. And I just we're meeting with CMT when I get back to Nashville.
Dang.
We're meeting with YouTube.
Yeah.
We've got people from Apple Music that I'm going to be meeting with at the show at Jelly Rolls, and some from Holler Magazine. A bunch of different things going down. I feel like Nashville has really opened its arms. I'm very grateful, that this transition, so to speak, or this homecoming rather, has been effortless. I mean, it's just been seamless as far as them opening the door and letting me in. It's been a beautiful thing. I feel more welcomed in this space than I ever have. So I'm very excited about the whole thing, and just to keep making music and keep chugging along.
Yeah. I have no doubt in my mind, bro, that you're gonna go in incredible places, and
thank you, bro.
It's very inspiring, dude. Like, to see everything that you've accomplished, but to see and thank you for inviting us in your home.
Absolutely,
bro.
absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
you didn't know who I was. I could have been a crazy dude.
Yeah, it's
with
true.
a
Yeah, it's
knife.
true. I thought so too. I didn't know for sure. No, I'm kidding.
But just
no, I've seen your stuff. I've seen your stuff, and I think what you do is incredible. By the way,
thank you.
And I don't know if you hear it enough, but
Thank you.
being a Christian, and I know sometimes your interviews kind of not necessarily just stick to Christianity, but it's a beautiful, beautiful thing that you also lean into it, and I hope that you continue to do that as much as you can. And I can't say that you haven't inspired me recently doing the same thing. So
I appreciate that.
Shout out. There's your flowers.
Thank you,
So,
bro.
Yeah.
Give people their flowers while they're alive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's true.
For real.
Because you're gonna try to catch a flight during a tornado tomorrow. So,
Dude, I'm really sending it for you, bro.
Here's your flowers.
No, we're gonna dip today because we don't want to get caught. But dude, for people that stuck around and they're still here, I think a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs, a lot of musicians, a lot of Christians, or people that want to dive into their spirituality and religion. I think a lot of people listen to the show for honestly like advice, like tangible things that they can do to be better across all areas of their life, whether it's spiritually, physically, emotionally, financially, religiously. So if there's any like piece of advice that you could give to the fans, like, what would you tell them?
Find a deeper purpose, more than what's just on the surface. I think, for me, like you said, it's Christianity. It's trying to bridge that gap. It's trying to be that bridge to a better religion. I think if you can get on that path, you can fix a lot of the mess. You know what I mean? And the road's messy. You know what I mean? From time to time, but you need to stay on that path. I think, there was times where I see it, and I see a lot of people. That there was times in my life where I thought Christians in church in general, like I was going to be judged, and I see a lot of people online talking about like churches and the money, like they're having a tithe, and what I'm saying, I've never been to a church in my entire life that was like forcing you to spend money to, what I'm saying, to donate towards the church. So, but I see a lot of it, and it may be specific churches they went to. I think there's been times where I've seen a lot of content where people are trying to steer away from it. They have this bad taste in their mouth about Christians, and I think the church itself, the same way I look at my music, I'm trying to go find you where you are, and I think the church is not a country club for the saints. You know what I mean? It's a sanctuary for sinners. You know what I mean? It's a hospital for the wounded, and I think you gotta get in there. You know what I mean? Like, don't, if you've ever felt it, if you're afraid of it, give it a shot, and find your way back. I think, be honest with yourself, and that honesty will lead you back to God. So,
yeah. Amen, bro.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, dude.
Thank you, bro.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man.
If people don't know where to find you, I'd be very surprised if they don't. But where do they find you on social media?
Just find me. No, it's at Clever on TikTok. Very simple, very hard to come by. At Clever, just as beautiful as that handle is. It's Who Is Clever on Instagram. Clever Music on YouTube. But you can find all of those at whoisclever.com.
Amen. And remember, if you follow God's path, you will never see an L ever.
That's true.
Let's go, baby. See you guys next time. Peace.
Thank you.